So yesterday we were discussing about the natural resources. We have gone through the video about the different resources which we get from soil, and today even I'll show you of one more video in which we'll see the soil, what are the minerals which are hidden, what are the minerals which are the soil which is rich in minerals, what type of minerals are there. So yesterday we have gone through the water pollution, air pollution. I hope it's clear to you all. And now we'll see the minerals which are rich in soil and what is causing this soil pollution. So I'll just share the video with you. Just 1 second, children.
Mineral riches in the soil. Soil is the uppermost layer of the earth. It is essential for our survival and development. Soil serves as natural habitat for microbes, plants, and animals. The outermost layer of our earth is called the crust, and the minerals found in this layer supply a variety of nutrients to life forms. These minerals are available to the organisms if they are broken down near the surface of the earth. This process is called weathering, which results in the formation of soil. Weathering involves a number of physical, chemical, and biological processes. Various factors that make soil are as follows. The sun. The alternate heating and cooling of the rocks break up the rocks into smaller pieces. The rocks are heated up during the daytime and get expanded. At night, these rocks cool down and contract. Since all parts of the rock do not expand and contract at the same rate, cracks develop in the rocks. Thus, the rock is broken up into smaller pieces. Water. Water is another factor that helps in the formation of soil. It acts in two ways. Water gets into the cracks in the rocks developed due to uneven heating by the sun. This water, if frozen, causes widening of the cracks. Fast-moving water erodes the rocks and often carries with it big and small pebbles of rock downstream. This again wear down into smaller and smaller particles. The water takes these particles along with it and deposits it further down its path. Wind. Like water, strong winds also erode the rocks and wear them down. The wind also carries soil particles from one place to another. Living organisms. Living organisms also play a significant role in the formation of soil. Lichens often grow on the surface of soil and release acids that cause the rock surface to powder down and form a thin layer of soil. Small plants like mosses, which grow in this thin layer of soil, cause the rock to break up further. The roots of shrubs and trees may grow into the cracks in the rock and break into smaller pieces. Based on the nature and composition, the soil is classified into 6 major types. They are alluvial soil, rich in loam and clay. Black soil, it has predominantly clay. Red soil, it is sandy to loam. Mountain soil, it is stony, sandy soil. Desert soil, it is sandy and poor in organic carbon. Laterite soil, it has porous clay, rich in iron and aluminium hydroxide. The capacity of the soil to sustain the plant growth with required nutrients is called fertility of the soil. Fertility of the soil declines due to certain reasons. Soil erosion. Continuous cultivation of crops in the same land. Soil fertility is sustained by the human efforts and natural processes. So, Soil is therefore termed as maintainable natural resource. Components of soil. Texture of the soil is determined by the size of constituent particles. Soil particle and their size. Name of particle: gravel. Diameter of particles above 2 millimeters. Coarse sand 2 millimeters to 0.2 millimeters. Fine sand 0.2 millimeters to 0.02 millimeters. Silt 0.02 millimeters to 0.002 millimeters. Clay below 0.002 millimeters. Soil water. Water is present in the intercellular spaces of soil particles. This water is called gravitational water. The water held between the soil particles due to capillary action is called capillary water. This form of water is available to plant roots for absorption. Soil air. The size of the soil particle affects the size of the air space present in the soil. Air is essential for the respiration of roots and soil organisms. The soil air also affects the drainage of the soil. Larger the air space, more rapid the drainage. Humus. Humus is present near the soil surface and it is formed from the dead remains of plants and animals by the activity of soil organisms. Humus increases the fertility of the soil. Nutrients or inorganic matter and minerals. Soil gets its inorganic matter from the parental rocks from which it is formed. In the fields, they are added as fertilizers. Soil minerals and inorganic salts together constitute inorganic matter. Plants require at least 16 different nutrients for their growth. Based on the amount of requirements, the nutrients are divided into two. Macronutrients. They are required in large amounts. They are also called major elements. Example: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium and sulfur. Micronutrients. They are required in small amounts, that is, traces. Example: iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum and chlorine. Of these nutrients, plants absorb carbon from carbon dioxide, oxygen from air and water from the soil and hydrogen from water in the soil. Other nutrients are obtained from the soil, so it acts as a reservoir of nutrients. Living organisms. The number of organisms like bacteria, fungi, algae, earthworms, roundworms and insects are present in the soil. Bacteria and fungi decompose the dead organisms and release the minerals back to the soil. Some bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen into nitrate, which is absorbed by the plants. Earthworms loosen and soften the soil by burrowing.
Yes, children, I hope it's
All the water on Earth today, every drop, is all the water there has ever been on the planet. Fresh water is actually millions of years old, the same water flowing in a continuous loop.
just 1 second, children.
falling as rain and snow from clouds to the Earth's surface, running in rivers, pooling in ponds, flowing from faucets, irrigating crops, traveling through plants, generating power, eventually evaporating into the air and condensing into clouds again.
Why is there life on Earth? And the reason there's life on Earth is because Earth has this perfect water cycle.
The water cycle. So simple, even small children understand the basics. Yet so complex, the most advanced Earth scientists, hydrologists, geologists, and biogeochemists are studying every part and process.
The water cycle is fascinating. It's something that's around us all the time, and yet we don't really understand it.
How to summarize what is known about the water cycle? With 2 words: flows and stores. The water cycle is a series of flows of water between various water stores or storages. Clouds in the atmosphere.
There's always a little bit of water in the atmosphere. We talk about relative humidity. It's a humid day, it's a dry day. Either way, there's water, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot.
There's a lot of water in the ocean, 70% of all the water on Earth. In the ice sheets and glaciers, 2/3 of all the fresh water on Earth. In the snowpacks atop mountains like the Sierra Nevada. In the Great Lakes. In rivers and streams. In reservoirs and watersheds. In wetlands. In the soil, in and on plants and trees rooted in the soil, and beneath the soil, in water tables and underground aquifers like the Ogallala High Plains, which runs underneath parts of 8 states from South Dakota to Texas. All this storage is temporary. Water in all its forms is always in flux and always moving. And there is a name for every kind of movement in the water cycle, starting with precipitation.
Precipitation is the process of water falling onto the surface of the Earth. You can have precipitation in many forms: rain, snow, hail.
Rain is falling water in liquid form. Snow, ice, hail, and sleet are falling water in solid or frozen form. Fog and mist, falling water in gas or vapor form. Precipitation that falls directly onto the oceans becomes part of surface ocean and can be churned by wave and wind action into ocean currents. Rain and snow that falls directly on rivers and streams becomes one part of stream flow. Rain that falls onto land takes a different path to the river, as does the snow and ice that falls and collects on mountaintops when temperatures warm.
When snow melts, some of it runs through the snowpack and goes into small streams, tributaries that feed into large rivers.
What about that precipitation that falls on and over land? Some is intercepted by vegetation, plants and trees.
Like you might imagine someone in the game of football intercepting a pass. These are raindrops trying to come to the ground, and the leaves on the tree intercept them before they hit the ground.
And the precipitation that does hit the ground, it can run off if the ground is hardscaped, covered with asphalt or concrete, or if the soil is too wet or saturated to absorb more water, like an over-soaked sponge. Otherwise, precipitation infiltrates the soil surface, percolates into the ground.
Think of it as the water percolating through your coffee grounds in the morning. Gravity continues to pull it downward so it will move through.
Through the topsoil, into spaces between soil and rock particles, down to bedrock and further into fractures, into deep underground aquifers. Even groundwater here is moving sideways or laterally, discharging toward a river, lake, or the sea. Generally, the deeper the flow, the slower the flow.
Some of that fractured water might take a very long time, thousands to millions of years to get out.
And how does water get back out into the atmosphere? It evaporates, is turned from a liquid into a gas or vapor by the heat of the sun.
If you put a bit of water into a bowl and you set it outside on a sunny day, it's going to disappear. It's still water, it's just in the form of a gas rather than the form of a liquid.
Water evaporates from every wet surface, even from wet air. Some rain and snow evaporates into the air while falling. Water evaporates through our respiration and perspiration, and from plants through transpiration. Trans means through or across. plant roots draw up groundwater.
And plants pull that water up through their stems into their leaves and then release it back out through evapotranspiration.
Evapotranspiration, a spelling bee-worthy term for evaporation from soil and water surfaces plus transpiration from plants. Evaporated water molecules are tiny enough to flow into the air, mix with smoke and dirt particles in the atmosphere, cool, condense into visible masses of water vapor, clouds. Winds move clouds into colder air, water droplets collide and merge, grow bigger and heavier until they are so heavy they fall again, as rain or snow, sleet or hail. Precipitation, collection, runoff, interception, infiltration, percolation, discharge, transpiration, evaporation, condensation. The water cycle.
Yes, children. Is it clear now? Yes. Are you all there? So, children, it's about the nitrogen cycle.
Nitrogen cycle. Living organisms require nitrogen for the synthesis of proteins and nucleic acids. Atmosphere contains about 78% of nitrogen, but it cannot be utilized by living organisms unless fixed in the form of ammonia, amino acids or nitrates. The cyclic process by which nitrogen element is circulated continuously through the living and non-living components of the biosphere is called nitrogen cycle in nature. Atmosphere and water bodies contain nitrogen. Plants cannot absorb nitrogen as such, but absorb nitrogen as ammonia and nitrates. Blue-green algae and certain bacteria can fix atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. There are three ways of nitrogen fixation. They are atmospheric nitrogen fixation, biological nitrogen fixation, industrial nitrogen fixation. Atmospheric nitrogen fixation. During lightning, due to high temperature, the atmospheric nitrogen reacts with oxygen and forms nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, and nitrogen peroxide. These compounds dissolve in rainwater to form dilute nitric acid. When it reaches the Earth's surface, they react with alkalis and form nitrates. Plants easily absorb nitrates. Biological fixation. Certain bacteria and blue-green algae can fix atmospheric nitrogen directly into nitrates. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria are of two types. Free-living, example, Azotobacter and Clostridium. Symbiotic, example, Rhizobium, present in the root nodules of certain leguminous plants. Anabaena and nostoc, algae. Industrial nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen combines with hydrogen under high pressure and high temperature to yield ammonia, Haber's process, which in turn oxidizes to form nitrates or ammonium salts. Steps involved in the process of nitrogen cycle are: atmospheric nitrogen is fixed and assimilated. Ammonification, nitrification, denitrification. Ammonification, the process of conversion of complex organic compounds into ammonia, is called ammonification. The dead remains of plants and animals and nitrogenous excretions of animals is converted into ammonia, carbon dioxide and water by the action of putrefying bacteria like actinomyces present in the soil and fungi. Nitrification, conversion of ammonia to nitrates and nitrites, is brought about by the nitrifying bacteria. Steps involved are: ammonia is oxidized to nitrites by Nitrosomonas bacteria. Nitrobacter oxidizes nitrites to nitrates. Denitrification. Bacteria Pseudomonas and Bacillus denitrificans convert nitrate to free nitrogen. This process is called denitrification. These bacteria are active only in waterlogged conditions. So, rate of denitrification is less than that of nitrification. Nitrogen enters into the biotic components through plants. Plants absorb nitrates from the soil. Plants synthesize various organic compounds like proteins and amino acids which pass on to consumers via food chain. Dead plants and animals are decomposed and ammonia is released. Ammonia thus formed is converted to nitrates by nitrifying bacteria. Plants absorb a part of it and rest is liberated as free nitrogen by denitrifying bacteria. Get